Kita na po yung screen ko?
Yes po, ma'am.
Yes
Okay,
po.
so our subject is Introduction to Human-Computer Interaction. So, sa Intro to Human Computer Interaction, maiksi lang kasi yung ating modules dito. Paki-off lang po yung ating mga audio. Okay lang po mag-on ng camera, pa-off lang po yung ating mga audios. Okay, so dito sa HCI, maiksi lang yung ating lesson dito kasi very basic lang naman siya. So, since late na ako nag-start kasi nga, baka matapos ko siya nang wala pang finals. Matapos natin siya nang wala pang finals yung discussion kasi maikli lang talaga siya. So, I will be discussing the lesson 1 to 3. Super iksi lang naman siya and very basic na to sa inyo kasi kilala nyo na si computer. So, our lesson 1 is the fundamentals of human-computer interaction. So, under the lesson 1, we have 4 topics. So, number 1 is the introduction to human-computer interaction, the human-computer characteristics, the memory, and the emotion. So, what are the learning outcomes? At the end of this lesson, students or you should be able to analyze different interfaces, usability, and goals, and translate them to the user requirements. Number 2, familiarize the definition of the human-computer interaction and the historical perspectives. And number 3, explain how primary senses contributes to the design goals. And lastly, you explain how to interface design is ultimately dependent on human perception and cognition. Okay, so yan yung dapat ninyong matutunan at the end of this lesson. So, first, topic 1, let us start with our topic 1, the intro to human computer. So, first, what is HCI? So, si HCI is ang human-computer action and previously known as the man-machine. So, studies or man-machine interaction. So, it deals with the design, the execution, and the assessment of computer systems and related phenomena that are for human use. So, HCI can be used in all disciplines wherever there is a possible of computer installation. So some of the areas where HCI can be implemented with distinct importance are, number 1 is computer science. This is for the application design and engineering. So kung meron tayong Bachelor of Science in Information Technology, meron tayong Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. So yan is yung sa application ng design and engineering ng computers. So, psychology, this is for the application of theories and analytical purposes. Sa sociology naman, this is for the interaction between the technology and the organization. And the industrial design, this is for interactive products like mobile phones, microwave oven, and etc. So, the CHI, this is the world's leading organization in HCI, which stands for Association for Computer Machinery Special Interest Group on Computer-Human Interaction. So, si SIGCHI or CHI defines computer science to be the core discipline of the HCI. So, sa India, it emerged as an interaction proposal, mostly based on the field of design. So, interacting with technology has become essential part of our everyday life for the majority of people. So, lahat na ng tao is nakatutok na sa ating technology. So, hindi na maalis sa atin yan kasi nga we are in the age or nandito na tayo sa punto na papunta na tayo sa teknolohiya na mundo. So, sa average user of a computer system is now less likely to understand the technology. So, kasi nga, masyado ng sobrang mabilis mag-advance ang technology. So, ang average ng computer system is mahirap ng intindihin para sa common users. So, since there are different types of technology, people are busy and may spend little or no time actually learning a new system. So, kung sa atin, normal peoples, hindi na tayo para mag-aralin pa yung bagong mga sistema sa sa computers. Therefore, ang computer system ay should evolve or should be easy to use, easy to learn, and with no error. So, to design and develop of such system is a major concern of the HCI. So, what is HCI? Ito yung human-computer interaction, a discipline concerned with the design, evaluation, and implementation of interactive systems for human use and with the study of major phenomena surrounding them. So HCI is the study of interaction between the people or the user and the computers. So interaction between users and computers occurs at the user interface. So ang HCI, simplest, sabihin natin pinakasimpleng explanation is interaction ng tao sa computer. So, sino ba ang nasusunod? Kung si tao ba o si computer? Okay. Sa HCI, meron siyang golden principle. May golden principle sa HCI. Ito yung people should come first. So, si HCI is concentrates on the study of human factors. Originally, HCI is focused primarily on computers. Dati kasi nakafocus lang si HCI sa computer. But since then, has expanded to include almost all variations of information technology design. So after the emergence of personal computers in the late 70s, yung mga researchers na realize nila na they had to expand the interaction with computers to everyone rather than to only people who are information technology professionals. Yung mga researchers na realize nila na hindi lang dapat computer technologies professionals yung nakakagamit ng computers. So, kailangan yung common or normal peoples is interact sa kanila or kayang gamitin yung ating computer. So, they studies primarily on how people interact with computers and to what extent the users are able to interact with the computer. So, there are three parts of HCI. So, what are those three parts? These are the human, could be an individual user or a group of users. Number two, computer should be any technology ranging from the general desktop computer to a large-scale computer system. And number three, interaction, which is any direct or indirect communication between a human and a computer. So those are the three parts of HCI. Excuse me. So HCI is not about making the interface look pretty. It's not about it's not only about desktop computers and that goes for computing as well. So it is not about also for something that would be nice to do, but usually there's no time for it. It is about understanding the users, understanding users' tasks, understanding the surrounding environment, GUI, requirements gathering and analysis, design prototype, and evaluate the system. So, that is about the HCI. So, in HCI is meron tayong goals. So, what are the goals of the HCI? So, the goal of HCI is to develop or improve the safety, utility, effectiveness, efficiency, and usability of system. That includes computers. So, interacting with computers, 1983. So, dyan yan galing. So, the goals of HCI are to produce usable and safe systems as well as functional systems. In order to fulfill that, developers must attempt to understand how people use technology. So, ibig sabihin, hindi tao yung mag-adjust sa computer. Dapat yung computer ang mag-adjust sa tao. So, building suitable systems that suits sa mga understanding ng people and achieve efficient, effective, and safe interaction and put people first. So, yan naman yung pinaka-main or golden idea ni HCI. So, people needs, capabilities, and preferences should come first. People should not have to change the way that they use a system. Instead, ang system should be designed to match their requirements. So, for example, si Google, hindi siya ang mag-adjust kasi, di ba, si Google, dalawa yung search bar niya. Si URL and si search bar. Minsan, ang ginagawa ng tao, doon sa search bar, doon sa URL bar, doon niya tinatype kung ano man yung gusto niyang malaman. Okay, so dapat doon yung URL ang itatype mo. But since si Google ay nag-adjust para sa suitability ng tao, ginawa niya na ring search bar and URL engine yung parehas na features nila. Or yung search bar, ginawa niya na rin URL bar. Yung URL bar, ginawa niya na rin search bar. So, siya yung nag-adjust. Okay, so mamaya, itakal natin. Okay, next. Ay, bakit tayo? Ayun, mag-next. So, we have, syempre, the historical evolution of the HCI. So, nag-start siya from early computer or yung ENIAC, improvement in the HW technology. It brought massive increase in computing power. So, people started thinking on innovative ideas. That is on 1946. On 1950s, in 1950s, visual display unit. Meron ng visual display unit ang ating computer. So, andyan yung SAGE or yung Semi-Automatic Ground Environment. So, an air defense system on the US used this early version of VDU. And in 1962, development of the Sketchpad. Meron ng Sketchpad. So, Ivan Sutherland developed Sketchpad and proved that computer can be used for more than data processing. In 1963, Douglas Engelbart introduced the idea of programming toolkits. So, meron na tayong mga programming toolkits in 1963. And in 1968, the introduction of word processor, yung mouse. So, design of NLS or online systems. In 1970, the introduction of personal computer or yung Dynabook na tinatawag nila. So, it developed the Smalltalk or the Xerox part. Ay, bakit tayo mag-next na din? Okay, next. Windows and WIMP interfaces. So, simultaneously jobs at one desktop, switching between work and screen sequential interaction. 1970 then, yung idea ng Metaphor, yung Xeroxstar and Alto were the first systems to use the concept of metaphors, which led to spontaneity of the interface. In 1982, direct manipulation introduced by Ben and first used in Apple, Mac, or sa PC in 1984. So that reduced the chances of syntactic errors. In 1990s naman, so yung multimodality or yung computer-supported cooperative work sa 1990s. And 1993, yung WW or yung ating World Wide Web HCI na develop. So, yung the first graphical browser, 1993 yan. So, pinanganak pa lang ako nun So, in 1990s, the ubiquitous computing. So, currently, the most active research area in HCI is the sensor-based or yung context-aware computing, or also known as the pervasive computing. Okay, so that is the end of our topic 1. Okay, so for the topic 1, you have the task 1. So I will post this on your Google Classroom. So please read the notes and do this in a Word document file and submit to our Google Classroom on or before the date of submission. So reminders, do not forget your name and section kasi nung last na nag-check ako, marami ako na-checkan na walang pangalan. So hindi ko na i-record. So rename the file to surname nyo, and then title of activity, for example, Gonzaga Task 1. Okay, so yeah. Next, proceed to topic 2, the human characteristics. So the human characteristics, human could be an individual user or group of users. So characterized by different features of which some are unique and other living creatures do not have. So okay pa po ba tayo? Baka wala na akong kausap dito.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Meron pa po.
Hindi ko kayo nakikita eh. Okay, so saan na ba ako? So these are the unique features of the human. So we have the information input output. So these are for visual, auditory, haptic, and movement. So ano po ba yung ating mga visual input output natin na tawag? So ano po ba yung mga input output devices natin? Ano po ba yung mga input output devices?
Keyboard po.
Yes, very good. Keyboard, monitor, mouse, speaker. So, yan po yung ating mga input-output devices. So, information stored in memory. So, we have the sensory, the short-term, and the long-term memory. So, give an example ng short-term and long-term memory natin. Is USB flash drive short-term or long-term memory? USB flash drive, long-term or short-term memory?
Long-term po.
Yes, very good. CD drive. So, yan yung mga example ng long-term memory. So, information, next is the information process and apply. This is for the reasoning, problem solving, and skilled error. Yes, maybe. Wait lang, may class lang si Mami. So, next is the emotion influences human capabilities, and each person is different. So, those are the unique other characteristics and features of individual users. So, himay-himayin natin yung ating features. We have the vision. So, vision is a complex process that is not yet completely understood despite hundreds of years of study and research. So, the complex physical of visualizing something involves the nearly simultaneously interaction of the eyes and the brain through a network of neurons, receptors, and other visual cells. So we have two stages in vision. We have the physical reception of stimulus and the processing and interpretation of stimulus. So sa physical reception, ang human eye is an organ, alam naman natin na organ siya that reacts to light and allows vision. So rod and cone cells in the retina allow conscious, wait lang po. Anak mo ka muna sa labas, dali na. So, si human eye natin, nag-aalaw siya ng lights and colors to differentiate the perception of the depth. So, ang physical reception of stimulus has mechanisms for receiving light and transforming it into electrical energy. So, the light also reflects from objects and images that are focused upside down sa ating retina. So, ang retina ay nagko-contains ng rods for low light vision and cones for color vision and ganglion cells sa brain natin which nagde-detect ng pattern sa ating movement. So, yan yung sa ating physical reception. How about dun sa processing and interpretation ng signals? So, nandyan yung size and depth. Sa size and depth, yung visual angle indicates how much a view object occupies, which relates to size and the distance from the eye. So, ang visual acuity is the ability to perceive detail, but in limited perception. Okay, so some familiar objects perceives a constant size in spite of changes in visual angle when viewed for longer distance. So, minsan may mga nami-misinterpret tayong mga images eh. So, yan yung mga reasons kung bakit. So, cues like overlapping help perception, size, and depth. So, nandito rin yung ating brightness. Yung eyes are subjective reaction to levels of lights. So, it is affected by luminance of object. Visual acuity increases with luminance as thus flicker. So, sometimes, brightness is measured by just noticeable differences. So, kaya sa ating computers, meron tayong settings for the brightness, for the colors, kasi pwede mo siyang i-adjust for the sake of your eyes. Okay, nandyan yung color. So, it made up of hue, intensity, and saturation. So, kapag ka nagde-design kayo, makikita nyo tong si hue, intensity, and saturation. So, cones are sensitive to color wavelengths. So, the blue acuity is lowest, and according to study, there are 8% of males and only 1% of females who are color blinded. So, yun, trivia lang din. So, 8% ng males ay color blinded. So, mas marami sa male ang color blinded. So, meron akong naging classmate na color blinded siya. So, iba yung tingin niya sa color orange, iba yung tingin niya sa color yellow. Basta dun sa mga bright colors, iba yung tingin niya. Kaya nung nag-design kami, sobrang, bakit ganun yung color? Color blinded pala siya, hindi niya alam. Okay, so the visual system compensates for movement and changes in luminance. So context is used to resolve ambiguity. Optical illusion sometimes occur due to overcompensation. So sa computer kasi meron minsan na optical illusion tayo. Okay, so yan. Ayan pala. So next we have the reading. So, sa reading, there are several stages of reading. We have the visual pattern perceived, the decoded using internal presentation of language. We have the interpreted using knowledge of syntax and semantics, pragmatics. So, reading involves saccades and fixations, and perception occurs during fixations. Word shape is important to recognize, and the negative contrast improves reading for computer screen. So, kailangan sa computer screen is readable kasi isa siya sa characteristics na ini-include sa paggawa ng computer system. Okay, sa hearing, the loudness and the pitch. So, sa human hearing, the range depends on both the pitch and the sound. So, whether it is high or low, and the loudness of the sound, pitch is measured in hertz, and the loudness measured is in decibels. So human hearings can hear frequencies from 20 hertz to 15 kilohertz. Okay, so there are variety of sounds in our environment. Ranging sounds from faint sounds like bird song and rustling leaves to louder sounds like music or yelling or yung industrial noise. So human hearing range is called the audible range. So we have our characteristic of sounds, the pitch or the sound frequency, the loudness or the amplitude, and the timbre or timbre kung sa Tagalog, the type of or quality. So sa physical apparatus naman, we have the outer ear. It protects the inner and amplifies sounds. So middle ear transmits sounds and sound waves as vibrations to inner ear, and the chemical transmitters are released and cause impulses to auditory nerves. So sa computer, tawag dito, ini-include nila or ano bang tamang term doon? Binibigyan nilang pansin itong mga senses ng humans kasi dito sila nagbe-base. So, kung mapapansin nyo sa mga computers, mahina lang or katamtaman lang yung sounds na, nilalabas ng ating mga computers. Kasi meron silang basihan sa hearing ng ating users. Next is the touch. So it provides important feedback about the environment. So may be key sense for someone who is visually impaired. So kapag kabulag ka, ito yung key senses mo, yung touch. So stimulus receives via receptors in the skin. So thermoreceptors, ito yung sa heat and cold. Nociceptors, ito yung sa pain, and the mechanoreceptors, ito yung sa pressure or some instant or some continuous. So some areas more sensitive than others. Example, yung fingers natin. Sensitive yan kasi 'di ba? Meron may mga games na nakapiring ka tapos ipapahawak sa'yo. Sobrang sensitive ng ating fingers. So kinesis is the awareness of body position and it affects comfort and performance. So next we have the movement. So this is time taken to respond to stimulus. So hindi naman pwedeng mabilis yung user, napakabagal no computer. So minsan naiinis tayo pag gano'n, 'di ba? So kailangan mag-adjust ng ating computer sa ating user. So reaction time and movement time. So sa movement time, it depends on age at sa fitness. So etc. Marami pang ibang nakadepende dyan. So sa reaction time, ito yung dependent on stimulus type. Sa visual, we have 20 ms. Sa auditory, we have 150 and sa pain, we have 700. Okay. So increasing reaction time, decreased accuracy is the unskilled operator but not in the skilled operator. Fitts law describes the time taken to hit screen target. So hindi ko ito masyadong i-discuss, papahagingin ko lang kasi ito ay parang science. But kailangan natin siya kasi these are the features na ano bang tawag dun? Hindi ko mabanggit yung term. Basta pinahahalaga ni computer or ginagawa niyang basihan para sa kanyang dinidevelop na system. So where A and B, okay, hindi na yan. So targets are as large as possible, distance as small as possible. Okay, next you have the task 2. Again, do not forget your name and section and rename your file. Okay, so i-attach ko naman po ito sa ating Google Classroom. And don't forget po na i-turn in yung inyong mga activity sa classroom. Okay, so ito meron tayong rubrics ng grading para doon sa ating mga tawag dito, para doon sa ating mga tasks kasi since those are essay, So we have our rubrics, the content, the grammar, and the organization of ideas, and for the total of 15 points. So yeah. Okay, next, we will be proceeding to the topic 3. Okay pa po ba tayo?
Yes po.
Okay pa.
Opo.
Okay. So, topic 3, we have the memory. So, memory is our ability to encode, to store, to retain, subsequently, recall information and past experiences in the human brain. So, it can be thought of in general term as the use of past experience to affect and influence current behavior. So, sa sensory memories, we have the attention, the short-term memory or working memory, rehearsal, and the long-term memory. So, sa memory, it is the sum total of what we are remembering, and it gives us the capability to learn and adapt from previous experiences as well as to build relationships. So, it is our ability to remember past experience and the power or process of recalling to remind previously learned facts, experiences, impressions, skills, and habits. So it is the store of things or learned things and retained from our activity or experiences. So as evidence, the structure or behavior or by recalling and recognition. So we have the 3 types of memory functions. So what are the 3 types of memory functions? We have the sensory memories, we have the short-term memory, we have the long-term memory. Okay, sa short-term memory, it is the shortest term element of memory. Kaya nga short-term memory siya, sensory memory, short-term memory. Sensory memories, hindi ko siya makita is the short-term element of memory. So it is the ability to retain impressions of sensory information after the original stimuli have ended. So for example, napasok ka. So, napasok ka. Okay na yun, napasok ka na. Short-term memory. Parang sa sensor mo, saglit lang siya, di ba? Okay, so it acts as a kind of buffer and stimuli. So it receives through the 5 senses of sight, sa hearing, sa smell, sa taste, and touch, which are retained accurately but very briefly. So saglit lang. Okay, si short-term memory acts as kind of scratch pad. Para siyang scratch pad for this is for temporary recall ng information na na-process at any point in time. So, and it has been referred to as the brain's post-it note. So, para lang siyang post-it note. So, it can be taught it can be thought of as the ability to remember and process information at the same time. So, it holds a small amount of information lang. Small amount lang. Typically, around 7 items or even less sa ating mind. So, readily available state for a short period of time. So, typically, from 10 to 15 seconds lang or sometimes up to 1 minute. So, yan yung ating short-term memory. So, for example ng short-term memory, in order to understand this sentence, the beginning of the sentence needs to be held in mind while the rest is read. So, ang task which is carried out by the short-term memory or other common examples of short-term memory, in action, saglit lang anak. So, the holding in action or the holding onto a piece of information temporarily in order to complete a task. Example, carrying over. So, a number in a subtraction or sum of remembering a persuasive argument until another person finish talking. So, kapag ka sa short-term memory, kapag ka nagkakwentuhan kayo, konti lang yung natandaan mo doon sa kwento niya. So simultaneous translation niyan konti na lang. So yung interpreter must store the information in one language while orally translating it into another. So iba na yung natatranslate natin kasi konti lang yung natandaan natin doon sa kwento niya. So what is actually held in short-term memory? So though it is not complete concepts, but rather links on pointers such as words. So for example, yung words, yun nga kanina, yung pag nagkakwentuhan kayo, konti lang yung matandaan mo doon. Pwera na lang kung chismosa ka talaga. So which the brain can flash out from its other. So next, we have the long-term memory. So long-term memory intended for storage of information over a long period of time. So despite our everyday impressions of forgetting, it seems likely that long-term memory actually decays very little over time and can store a seemingly unlimited amount of information almost indefinitely. So long-term memory is obviously enough or intended storage for information over a long period of time. So indeed, there is some debate, merong mga iilang debate na whether we actually forget anything at all, it becomes increasingly difficult to access or retrieve certain items from memory. So sa long-term memory, sa ating brain, even na forget na natin, mahirap na siyang minsan na-forget natin, pero nare-retrieve din natin, mahirap nga lang siyang ma-retrieve. Okay, so sa computer naman, sa long-term memory, yan yung ating mga devices na makapag-store tayo ng files even nakapatay yung computers natin. Okay, that is the long-term memory. So we have the two types of memory. We have the semantic and we have the episodic. So si semantic is a structured memory of facts, concepts, and skills. And semantic LTM derived from the episodic LTM. So si semantic is the recollection of facts. Ano ba na? Gathered from the time we are young. So they are indisputable nuggets of information that associated with emotion or personal experience. So ang semantic refers to a portion of long-term memory. So si semantic is long-term memory that process ideas and concepts that are not drawn from personal experience. Semantic memory includes things that are a common knowledge, such as the names of colors, the sounds of letters, the capitals of countries, and other basic facts acquired over a lifetime. So, yan yung ating semantic memory. So, nung bata tayo, di ba, alam natin yung mga colors. So, hanggang ngayon, alam na natin. So, yan yung concept ng ating semantic memory. It was introduced in 1972 and as the result of the collaboration between si Endel Tulving sa University ng Toronto and Wayne Donaldson sa University ng New Brunswick. Yan yung impact ng organization sa human memory. Okay, si Tulving, siya ay nag-outline ng separate system sa conceptualization ng episodic and semantic memory. Sa kanyang libro, ang elements ng episodic memory, he noted na ang semantic and episodic differ in how they operate and the types of information they process. So, bago si Tulving, meron tayong human memory, that not undergone in many depth of studies or researches. But since then, ang number of researches or projects na in-investigate sa difference between semantic and episodic memory, yung ilan doon ay most notable experiments. Yung ang relating is ang semantic memory were conducted by JF sino ba to? JF Killstrom noong 1980s. Yan, siya yung nag-test ng hypnosis ng semantic and ang episodic memory. So, let us versus the semantic and the episodic. So, si semantic ay ang collection or recollection ng facts na nag-gathered natin from the time we are young. So, they are indisputable nuggets of information associated with the personal experiences. So, examples ng ating semantic memory are the knowing that the grass is green. So, yung mga basic lang sa ating semantic. Recalling the Manila is the capital of the okay, so knowing how to use scissors, understanding how to put words together with the sentence, recognizing the names of colors, nabanggit natin kanina, the name of your dog, knowing how to use the phone, knowing the president of the country. So, yun yung ating semantic. How about the episodic? So, si episodic naman is specific to the individual. So, it is the, gulo na tong anak ko na to eh. It is the recollection of the biographical experiences and specific events in time in a serial form. So, bigyan na lang tayo ng example para mabilis. Examples na episodic memory, recalling where you were when Aquino shots. So, reminiscing about your first kiss. Oh, recalling your first day of school. So, yan yung ating episodic. Knowing the name of breed of your first dog. And remembering your wedding day or your first anniversary day, your first monthsary date. So, recalling the guest of your best friend's 30th birthday party. So, yan yung ating mga episodic. Knowing your love partner in college chemistry class. Charing. So, remember your first day on your school or your new job. So, yan yung ating episodic memory. So, we have our two main types of long-term memory. We have the declarative memory or yung knowing what it is the memory of facts and events and refers to those memories that can be consciously recalled or declared. So it is sometimes called explicit memory since it consists of information that is explicitly stored and retrieved, although it is more properly a subset of explicit memory. So declarative memory can be further subdivided into episodic memory and semantic memory. Next, we have the procedural memory or yung knowing how, kung paano. So this is unconscious memory of skills and how to do things, particularly the use of objects or movements of the body, such as tying a shoelace, playing a guitar, or riding a bike. So these memories are typically acquired through repetition and practice and are composed of automatic sensory motor. So behaviors that are so deeply embedded that we are no longer aware of them. So once learned, these body memories allow us to carry out ordinary motor actions more or less automatically. So procedural memory is sometimes referred to as implicit memory because previous experiences aid in the performance of tasks without explicit and conscious awareness of these previous experiences, although it is more properly subset of implicit memory. So, ano lang, trivia lang. Studies shown that musicians tend to have a better memory than non-musicians. So, not just for music, but for words and pictures too. So, wait lang. Ma, nagkakapit ako eh. So, yun. Sabi ng studies, yung mga musician daw, ay mas merong better memory than dun sa mga hindi musicians. So, interestingly, they also tend to use different strategies of memorization. So, being more likely than non-musicians to group words into similar semantic categories and less likely to verbalize pictures. So, kasi pag mga musicians, nagbabasa sila ng notes, 'di ba? So, kaya nila. So, sabi ng studies, mas better daw yung memory ng musicians. So, these different types of long-term memory are stored in different regions sa ating brains and undergo quite different processes. Okay. So, declarative memories are encoded by the hippocampus. Wag na yan. Science na yan eh. Okay na yan. Hindi ko na-discuss to sa science na to eh. Okay, so next we have the reasoning. So, sabi din sa study, ang brain daw natin can scan or shown tawag dito. Sabi din sa study, yung mga drivers or taxi drivers na nag-spend ng times sa pag-memorize ng cities or streets develop physical larger hippocampi or yung basta part sa ating brain na muscle. So much as muscle is enlarged by weight training. Yun yung sa muscle natin sa brain na for the training or memorization. So, yung mga taxi drivers or mga drivers natin has a larger hippocampi. So, yan. Uy, malulubat na ako. Okay, next we have the reasoning. So, sa reasoning, it is the capacity for a person to make sense of things to establish and verify facts. Haba pa pala. To rationally works through data, information, facts, and beliefs, it is the process of forming conclusions and judgments from facts or premises, to put it plain and simple. So it is the ability to coherently think from perceived premise to a logical conclusion. So alam nyo na yung reasoning. Sa deductive reasoning, ang deductive reasoning is the form of reasoning which a conclusion follows logical and coherently from the factual premises and propositions. So these deductive arguments are based upon the concept of sound and consistent reasoning. So if the premises are true, then the systematic reasoning with the constructed syllogism is considered valid. And deductive argument is making its conclusion certain with a degree of logical certainty. So plainly speaking, deductive reasoning is the rationality of reasoning from pure logic. So it is considered sound and pure logic. So next is the inductive reasoning. So inductive reasoning is a form of reasoning that uses analogies, examples, observations, experiences to form a conclusive propositions. Inductive logic also uses experience to formulate statements based on general observations of recurring patterns in nature, science, and everyday occurrences. So pulling from such things as samples, cases, experiments, and natural eye observations. It used mostly to explain properties and relations to objects or types based on previous observations. And it must be understood that inductive arguments do not try to establish their conclusions through absolute certainty, but through observable and predictable certainty. So, did you know that analogical reasoning and matrix reasoning are both sub-methods of inductive reasoning? It correlates information that compares the similarities between new and understood thoughts. And then it uses the similarities to gain understanding of new concepts. So these two forms of reasoning are considered both inductive because it strives to provide understanding of what is perceived to be true rather than deductively proving something as fact. Okay, so next we have the abductive reasoning. So sa abductive reasoning, other things, it is closer to deductive reasoning because using sound logical, one elements the most likely arguments to come to the most reasonable solution. So I like to call it the best compromise between an inductive and the deductive argument. So parang siya ito yung referee ni inductive and ni deductive. So si reductive naman, si reductive is the subset of argumentative reasoning which seeks to demonstrate that a statement is true by showing that a false or absurd result, circumstance follows from its denial. So it is proving a statement true by reducing to the opposite and opposite of it and showing the absurdity of the opposite result. So, baliktad naman siya. Papatunayan niya na true kapag papatunayan niya na true sa opposite side. Papakita niya yung result ng opposite side. So, it is logically reasoning to the absurd, reducing to the absurd. So, hence, the name with the reductive reasoning is also called reductio ad absurdum. It is from the Latin word reduction to absurdity. Okay. So, next is the fallacious reasoning. Fallacious reasoning is not real reasoning. It is the false premises for critical thinking and logic. So, one of the telltale signs of fallacious reasoning is a logical fallacy. A fallacy is usually an error in reasoning and argumentation, so often due to a misconception, false premises, or presumptuous conclusions. So circular reasoning is actually considered more of a form fallacious reasoning. So it would not be considered valid nor useful in a live debate. So next we have the problem solving. So sa problem solving, these are the problems. Problems are the center of what may people do at work every day. So whether you're solving a problem for a client, for internal or external, supporting those who are solving problems, or discovering new problems to solve the problems, you face can be large or small, simple or complex, and easy or difficult. So it is the process of finding solution to unfamiliar task, knowing knowledge. So several theories are identified below to show how problem solving is used. So we have the Gestalt, the problem solving both productive and reproductive. Productive draws on insight and restructuring of problems. So attractive, but not enough evidence to explain insight, etc. So move away from behaviorism and led towards information processing theories. Next, we have the analogy. Analogical mapping. Dito yung novel problems in your domain. So we have the new use of knowledge of similar problem from similar domain. Analogical mapping difficult if domains are semantically different. And we have the problem space theory. So sa problem space theory, under is problem space comprises problem state. We have the problem solving involves generating states using legal operators. Heuristics may be employed to select operators, example, means ends analysis. It operates within human information processing system or yung STM limits and largely applied to problem solving in well-defined areas, example, puzzles rather than knowledge intensive areas. And next, we have our skilled accusation. The skilled activity characterized by chunking or lot of information is chunked to optimize STM. Conceptual rather than superficial grouping of problems and information is structured more effectively. Okay, let's proceed to the mental modes of humans. Okay, the mental modes is a description of the brain to grasp an object so that it can be interpreted and explained through multiple representations. So, example, verbal explanations, charts, diagrams, pictograms, images, marami pang iba. So, mental models can be fostered through learning by promoting creativity of the children. So, in science learning, creativity must be developed in uh, imaginative creativity so that the students will improve mental models. So, for example, ang molecular model is the result of thinking process by using mental models through the ability of person's creative imagination. So, the mental model rule of thumb. So, ito siya. Bird has wings, has feathers, and can fly. So, canary is yellow and can sing. Siya ay part ng bird. Si penguin is part ng bird and it can swim and it can fly. So, and so on and so forth. So, next we have the confused mental modes. So, sa confused mental modes, Nielsen, wait. Wait lang, anak. Ay, wait. Hello, nandiyan po ba? Nandiyan pa po ba tayo?
Yes po, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Magugulo yung mga Junakis ko eh. Okay, so next we have the confused mental models. So si Nielsen or si Jacob Nielsen, ang founding member ng Nielsen-Norman Group, ay nag-offer ng excellent insight sa potential confusion in mental modeling. So this takes place when users fail to recognize the key differences between the similar but not identical parts of the system. So Nielsen also offers a series of common mental model confusions that some users appear to encounter on a regular basis. So they do not understand the differences between the windows provided inside an operating system and those inside a browser. And they also do not understand the difference between the windows and the application. So magkaiba yun. They do not understand also, ayon kay Nilsson, yung icons and yung applications. Also, the browser commands and the commands that are held within the app. The local and remote information and the login options and passwords. So, example, user will often log in into any website as though they were trying to log in into their email account. So it appears that ang user know that they can type stuff into a box and get taken to where they want. To go, but uncertain as to the functionality of any given box. Kaya yung sabi ko kanina example. So this is offers an explanation sa sample ko kanina as to why browsers have evolved. Siya yung nag-adjust para sa tao. So yung treat ng URL box as a search box in many cases now, the functionality ng browser has to change to meet the user's mental models, as the mental model itself was too confused to easily adapt and design the pattern that users encountered. So minsan yung system ang nag-adjust para sa mental models ng tao. So dito sa search bar, tina-type natin diyan, dapat ang ita-type natin doon sa URL bar is yung URL ng site. But then dito tayo nagta-type sa search bar kung saan natin gustong pumunta. For example, Google. So ta-type lang natin siya yung Google and then lalabas si google.com. 'Di ba? Dapat si google.com ang ita-type natin doon sa URL. So nag-adjust yung ating system para sa mental models ng ating ng tao. Okay. So si Nilsson nag-offer siya ng ayun na nga yung kanina. So we have two types of error. So another consideration when building products is recognizing different kinds of errors that are based on the user's mental models. So namely the difference between a slip and a mistake. So ang slip is when a user has the correct mental model of how a system works but accidentally made the wrong action. And the mistake naman is when the user does exactly what they intended to do, but they have the wrong mental model of how the system works. So, baliktaran sila. Si Sleep, alam niya yung gagawin, but accidentally, nagkamali siya ng ginawa. Si Mistake naman, ginawa niya yung dapat gawin, pero mali yung mental model kung paano yung system nag-work. Okay, so example niyan sa Sleep, yung user accidentally niya na-click yung wrong button because of a motor error. So that is known as sleep. Okay. So sa mistake naman, for example, if a user takes a freeway exit thinking that makakapunta sila doon sa gusto nilang puntahan kapag pumasok sila doon sa exit. So that is a mistake. Kasi labasan yun, di ba? So hindi sila makakapunta doon sa dapat nila puntahan. That is a mistake. Alam nila yung gagawin nila pero mali yung mental models nila. So that is a mistake. So one of the example also is the presidential voting ballot noong 2000 election. So, due to poor layout of the ballot, it is hypothesized that many people made the mistake of voting for Pat Buchanan. So, si Pat Buchanan, naka-receive siya ng 0.85% of the votes from the people who used this ballot, but only 0.2% of the votes from people who voted absentee or used a different style of balot. So, yan din yung example na mistakes. So, kung makikita nyo yung balot niya, hindi maayos yung bilog, yung dots. Okay, so kung masi-shade mo to, para yan dito sa number 13. So, hindi maayos um, yung paggawa ng balot. So, itong erroneous votes na to ay nag-result ng mistake kasi yung voters performed the manual task of punching the second hole but had inaccurate perception of what the second hole meant. So, a better user interface design could have avoided this problem. So, pinunch nila yung second hole without knowing kung para saan yung second hole. So, that is a example of mistake. So, next example, we have a good interface sa car to, yung sa miniature controls ng car seats. So, this interface manipulate different parts of the seat itself. So, this reduces the potential for confusion in users kasi madali siyang intindihin. So, di ba, meron siyang mga buttons na ganyan. So, isa pa sa potential solution sa okay na yan, okay. So, next example pa, yung ating itong ating sa mga DJ, yung technology for the DJs while minimizing the difference between the old technologies, yung system ng DJs called the Final Scratch. Yung Final Scratch, the DJ uses two turntables that send a code to the computer instead of playing music directly. So the computer then is able to convert the code into the song that is being played and play from the speakers. Excuse me. So this allows the DJ to play anything, even things are not on vinyl. So it also allows all the benefits of the digital music. So that is also an example of good interface sa ating technology. Okay, so kaya pa ba? Kaya pa? Last na rin to. Last na yung ating emotions.
Yes,
so,
ma'am.
we have the task number 3 sa ating lesson 3. Topic 3, we have our task number 3. So, I will post then again sa ating classroom. So, lastly, the topic 4, the emotion. So, what is emotion? So, emotions exert an incredibly powerful force on human behavior. So, minsan, emotion affects yung buong pagkatao natin. So, lalo na for the girls, di ba? Emotional tayo eh. So, strong emotions can cause you to take actions you might normally perform to avoid situations you enjoy. So, why exactly do we have emotions? So, bakit nga ba meron tayong emotions? So, what causes us to have these feelings? Ouch! Wait, nag-hibernate
O ano? Saan?
Leandro.
Wala si mami. Nakikinig ka rin pala, Maso.
Lyra.
Na-record yan, na-record.
Bakit, Merv?
Ba't si Wawi? Module ba yan?
Hoy, naka-record yan.
Ande.
Okay, sorry, nalubat yung laptop ko. Okay.
Okay.
So, let us continue
Okay, ma'am.
po. Wait lang. Record ko ulit. Ay, naka-record pa rin pala siya. So, mabilis na lang to. Last topic na tayo. Okay, so, let's continue. Sorry, nalobat yung laptop ko. Hindi ko na-charge agad. So, in psychology, emotion is often defined as a complex state of feeling that results in physical and psychological changes that influence our behavior. So, emotionally is associated with a range of psychological phenomena, including temperament, personality mode, and motivation. So, according to the author, David J. Mayers, so human emotion evolved psychologically arousal. So, expressive arousal behaviors and conscious experiments. Okay, so we have our theories of emotion. We have the major theories of motivation and can be grouped into three main categories: the psychological, the neurological, and the cognitive. So, ang psychological theory suggests that responses within the body are responsible for emotions. And the neurological theories propose that the activity within the brain leads to emotional responses. And the cognitive theories argue that thoughts and other mental activity play an essential role in forming emotions. So sa psychological theories, sinasuggest nila na ang responses ng body natin ay responsible sa ating emotions. For example, kapag kagalit ka, nananakit ka. So that is psychological theories. Sa neurological theories naman, ang propose nila, yung activity sa brains natin, nagli-lead sa emotional responses. So kapag ka-stress ka, possible na maapektuhan yung mga activities mo. And then sa cognitive theories naman, yung mga iniisip mo or yung mental activity mo ay nagpi-play ng essential role sa pagbuo ng ating mga emotions. Okay, next, we have the evolutionary theory of emotion. So sa evolutionary theory, it was proposed by the naturalist Charles Darwin. Kilala niyo naman si Charles Darwin, di ba? He proposed that ang emotions ay nag-evolve because they were adaptive and allowed humans and animals to survive and reproduce. So feelings of love and affection lead people to seek mates and reproduce. So feelings of fear compel people to either fight or flee. So it is the source of danger. So according also to the evolutionary theory of emotion, our emotions exist because they serve an adaptive role. Emotions motivate people to respond quickly to stimuli in the environment, which helps improve the chances of success and survival. So, Ito yung sa evolutionary theory natin. Yan. Yung emotions daw is nagmo-motivate sa people na mag-respond quickly sa ating environment na nakakatulong mag-improve or mag-enhance sa ating success ng survival. Okay. So next we have the James Lang theory of emotion. So James Lang theory of emotion, this theory is one of the best known examples of psychological theory of emotion. So independently, this proposed by psychologist William James. So kilala niyo rin si William James and si Carl Lange. So the James Lange theory of emotion suggests that emotions occurs as a result of psychological reactions to events. So kung ano yung naging reaction nyo sa isang pangyayari, yun yung nakaka-apekto sa emotion natin. So this theory suggests that when you see an external stimulus that leads to a psychological reaction, ang emotional reaction natin is nakadepende kung papaano natin i-interpret yung physical reaction natin. For example, kapag galit ka, so pwede kang manakit or pwede kang manahimik. So, another example, suppose you are walking in the woods and you see a grizzly bear, you begin to tremble and your heart begins to race. So, ang James Lang theory proposed that you will interpret your physical reactions and conclude that you are frightened. Ayun. So, I am trembling, therefore I am afraid. So, yun yung ating James Lang theory. So, according to this theory also of emotion, you are not trembling because you are frightened. Instead, you feel frightened because you are trembling. Okay, so next we have the Cannon-Bard theory of emotion. So, ang Cannon-Bard theory of emotion is also another well-known psychological theory ni Cannon-Bard. So, si Cannon-Bard and si Walter Cannon disagreed with the James Lange theory. So, dinisagreed niya yung theory ni James Lange. So, ang different ito, first, he suggested na ang people can experience psychological reactions linked to emotions without actually feeling those emotions. For example, your heart might race because you have been exercising and not because you are afraid. So, kinontradict niya yung sinabi ng James Lang theory na kapag kung ano yung emotions mo, yun yung magiging physical reaction mo. Sa kanya, pwedeng yung emotion mo is automatically yung physical reaction mo. Yung in-example niya is yung nag-exercise ka, your heart beat because you are exercising, not because you are afraid. Okay. So next, so si Cannon also suggested na ang emotional responses ay naka-occur much too quickly for them to simplify products of physical states. So when you encounter a danger in the environment, so kapag nakaramdam ka ng mapapahamak ka sa isang lugar, you will often feel afraid. So before you start to experience the physical symptoms associated with fear, such as shaking hands or rapid breathing and a racing heart, so hindi mo na kinakailangang makita physically yung mangyayari sa'yo. Mararamdaman mo na lang siya. Wait lang. Merong mga napa-admit. Okay. So, ayan. Konti na lang. Next, we have this Scatcher-Singer theory. So, sa Scatcher-Singer theory, it is also known as the two-factor theory of emotion. So the Scatcher-Singer theory is an example of a cognitive theory of emotion. So this theory suggests that the psychological arousal occurs first, and then the individual must identify the reason of this arousal to experience and label it as an emotion. So like the Cannon-Bard theory, the Scatter Senior theory also suggests na similar psychological responses can produce varying emotions. So for example, if you experience a racing heartbeat and sweating palms or namamawis yung kamay mo during an important math exam, you will probably identify the emotion as anxiety. So, na-stress ka kapag halimbawa, yung nag-exam ka ng math, malakas yung kaba ng dibdib mo, namamawis yung kamay mo. So, you will identify na, ma-identify mo na meron kang anxiety. So, if you experience some same physical responses on a date, yan ang mga gusto nyo, di ba? Mga date. So, sino ba? Kapag ka first date nyo, ganyan yung experience nyo, di ba? Yung malakas ang kabog ng dibdib, ganyan. Namamawis yung mga paa at kamay. So, pag uwi ng bahay, namumutik na yung paa. Joke lang. So, kung nakaka-experience kayo ng ganon with your significant other, you might interpret those responses as love or affection or arousal. So, kapag na-experience nyo yun sa date, ibig sabihin, meron kang nararamdaman doon sa ka-date mo or doon sa partner mo. So, okay, next. We have the cognitive appraisal theory. So, sa cognitive appraisal theory, theories of emotions, thinking must occur first before experiencing emotions. Si Richard Lazarus naman ang pioneer ng area of emotion na to. And this theory is often referred to as the Lazarus theory of emotion. So, according kay Lazarus, the sequence of events first involves a stimulus followed by thought, which then leads to the simultaneous experience of psychological responses and the emotion. So, for example, if you encounter a bear in the woods, you might immediately begin to think that you are in a great danger. Then, this then leads to the emotional experience of fear and physical reactions associated with the fight or flight response. Okay? So, dito sa cognitive theory, yung emotions mo will lead for the physical reaction. So, mag-iisip ka kung natakot ka at kung ano man yung dapat mo gawin. So, sa facial feedback theory of emotion naman, sinasuggest dito na ang facial expressions are connected sa ating na-experience na emotion. So, si Charles Darwin and si William James both noted early on that sometimes psychological responses often had direct impact on emotion rather than simply being a sequence of emotion. So, for example, dito, people who are forced to smile pleasantly at a social function will have a better time at the event than they would if they had frowned or carried a more neutral facial expression. So, dito sa facial feedback theory, malinaw naman na sinasabi dito na ang facial or ang facial reactions natin is nakaka-apekto sa ating emotions. Okay. So, alam nyo ba na ang neuroscientist na si Joseph Nedox does more than study emotional processing and conditioning in rats. He also, sa mga scientists naman, lagi namang rats or animals yung kanilang ginagawang objects eh. So, he is also the lead singer in his bands. So, hindi natin kilala to, the amygdaloids. So, his bands often explain psychological music and their songs. So next, we have the understanding the user. So users share common capabilities but are individuals with differences which should not be ignored. So user classification, we have three main types of users. We have the novice, the knowledgeable, intermittent user, and the expert or the frequent user. So alam na alam niyo yan sa mga games, meron yan eh. So users can however be classified in any other way that is appropriate to the system being built. So number one, it's sometimes some users may have keyboard skills, others have not. So sa atin merong magaling mag-typing masters, yung iba naman hindi maalam. So merong users may have knowledge of the similar systems, yung others ay wala. So ano po ba yung mga advantages ng classification mean that generalizations can be made about users needs? So ang advantages niya, this doesn't necessarily mean that the best system has been designed for every individual. And it means that the system has been designed to fit the generalizations for each user group. So, ibig sabihin, kapag maganda yung system mo, nagagamit siya even ng marunong sa keyboard and even ng hindi masyadong marunong sa keyboard. So, first, sa novice, alam niyo yan, baguhan, diba? For the novice user of a system, progress is slow because of the limitations of working memory. So, chunking is almost entirely absent, or chunking or yung pagkain niya ng information. And systems used by novice require more feedback and more opportunities for closure. So, yan. Yung para sa novice. So, guidelines for novice users. All initiatives should come from the computer. So, yung novice may not know what is to be done. Hindi niya alam kung ano yung dapat niyang gagawin. So, each required input should be brief. Dapat maigsi lang lahat kasi hindi niya masyadong matandaan lahat. So, input procedure should be consistent with user expectation. So, yung human search for patterns will generalize, though special training should be necessary. And all system messages should be clear. Lahat naman yan, kahit expert ka, dapat clear yung system messages. Yung user decision should be made from a small set of options. So, the more of a selection you offer, the harder it is to choose. So, dapat kaunti lang. So, users should control the pace of interaction. So, they need to understand the system and feel that they can control it and not to reverse. Na yung computer yung dapat nagko-control sa'yo. So, user decision making should be a response to a specific request for action. So, dapat, yan, example, save, yes or no. So, help should always be available. Dapat, kung napansin nyo sa mga computers, kahit sa mga websites, kahit anumang devices, meron tayong help button. So, there should be sufficient feedback or closure. So, next is a knowledgeable or intermittent user. So, these are consistent instructions and good help facilities and good documentations. So, the expert users naman, these are the users that have the fast responses time and will require brief feedback. Ito yun sa mga expert, konti na lang yung response time nila kasi alam na nila yung gagawin. And meron lang silang maikling feedback. So sa experts, it organized their knowledge according to a higher conceptual structure. And they can recall more than novices because their knowledge is chunked. So marami na silang nakaing information, kaya alam na nila yung mga knowledge about sa system. So experts users will look for keyword shortcuts, abbreviated sequences. So kapag makikita mo kapag novice users ng system yung user, kapag right click niya pa yung text and then copy. Tapos, compare mo doon sa expert. Sa expert, mag-control-C, control-V lang siya. Lahat, puro shortcut keys ang ginagamit. So, experts can find constant confirmation screen. Irritating use this only when important. So, those are the types of users. Next, you have the user control and the freedom. Okay, in general, so users from mistakes and give them the freedom and power to undo a mistake when they make one. So kaya meron tayong undo and redo. So the system should adapt to the needs of the user, not the reverse. So kaya sa bawat system, meron tayong undo and redo button. Kasi we are not perfect. We done a lot of mistakes before we comply one task. So don't make important irreversible actions easy to perform. So pressing a delete button should not delete the item straight away sa system. Kapag pinress mo yung delete, hindi yun siya ma-delete agad-agad. Instead, mag-ask siya sa user na i-confirm kung i-delete na ba yung item or not. So you should also remind them that it may not be possible to undo the delete action once completed. So dapat meron din kayong show message na kapag dinilit niya na, temporary, mawawala na yung file. Dapat alam nila yun. Okay, so after undo and redo options, if possible, allow the user to start over or undo or edit the last section and redo actions they have already completed. So this is very useful kapag gumagawa na kayo ng inyong mga thesis. So kailangan tandaan nyo tong mga tips na to. So when inside an interface, you provide clearly marked emergency exits or signs. So you have a clear identifiable exit or home button. So they give the user a level of comfort that they can leave when they choose and without having to navigate the exit point. Sorry, sana yun. Okay, so next we ask for confirmation whenever you can. So without being annoying or very overprotective. So this is a difficult balance to achieve. So the level of confirmation might require from the user may depend on whether they are novice, expert, or intermediate users. So sa expert steps, alam niyo ba, sa expert steps ng logging in, logging on or logging in is just dalawa lang talaga yung steps. It's either input username and input password. Pero sa actual steps ng logging in, kapag gumagawa kayo ng instructions or manual, meron siyang 7. You can sasabihin mo dyan, press any key to activate screen. Click input box. Input username. Press tab or click into second input box. Yan ang sound. Input password. Press return. So wait for a welcome message or error message or something message if welcome message. So kapag welcome message, then task ends. So if error message, then repeat 2 and 7 or repeat input username or input password or toggle caps lock and repeat input username and password or ask for help. So napaka detailed ng logging on steps niya kumpara dun sa experts na input username, input password lang ang instruction. Okay. So, next. Thank you. See you next meeting. Yan na pala yung ating end ng lesson. Okay? So, Hello there. Meron kayong task 4 about sa emotions din.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, any questions po about or regarding sa ating lessons or sa ating topics? May questions po ba tayo? Wala na pong questions? So, kung wala na pong questions, ipopost ko na lang po or i-attach ko na lang po yung ating mga task doon sa ating classroom, and don't worry kasi hindi ko siya lalagyan ng deadline. So, until finals, pwede nyo siyang i-comply. Kasi nadala ako nung first term natin na naglagay ako ng deadline ba. Tapos, hanggang finals, nag-submit din naman. Naglagay-lagay pa ako ng deadline, useless naman. Okay, so now, hindi ako maglagay ng deadline. Basta ma-submit nyo siya kasi ang grading system natin is 60% pa rin yung inyong output and 40% yung inyong finals and midterm exam. So, wait for further announcement po sa ating laboratories kasi parang pinag-uusapan ng schools na magkakaroon ang computer subjects at ang mga major subjects kami, magkakaroon kayo ng scheduled laboratory sa ating school. So, di ko alam kung na-announce na ng inyong mga advisors, but wait for further announcement po para sa laboratories para ma-try nyo po yung ating lalo-lalo na sa mga major subjects. Okay, yun. So, yun nga. Walang deadline ng ating mga activities as long as ma-comply nyo po lahat. But, please lang po wag pa aabutin ng finals naman. Pag nag-announce kami ng final exam, dapat lahat ng task nyo is accomplished na. Kasi mag-check pa kami ba. So, yun lang po. And any concerns pa po? Questions? Okay na po?
Wala na po.
Okay, so pa-open na lang po ng ating mga camera for the documentation purposes. Pa-open na po. Okay, wait lang natin yung iba mag-open. So, meron pa po ba kayong mga instructors na hindi nyo pa nami-meet?
Meron po, ma'am.
Meron pa po? Okay. Okay.
Ma'am, hindi po namin alam ano yung teacher namin.
Meron pa naman po.
Sino po? Sino po ang teacher niya sa?
Sa computer programming 2 po, ma'am.
Computer Programming 2, DSIT 1E. Hindi niyo pa nami-meet?
Wala pa po, ma'am. Kasi po, ma'am, naka-enroll po kami dun sa Google Classroom mo po, ma'am.
Ganon. Kasi ang Computer Programming 2 nyo yata ay kung hindi si Sir Ariel Manuel. Tato lang kasi kami teacher ng Computer Programming 2. Hindi si Sir Ariel Manuel, si Ma'am Maria Regina Flores. So, meron po ba kayong pinasahan po ba kayo ng schedule nyo? Class schedule? Makikita nyo po doon kung sino yung inyong teacher or instructor sa computer programming. Okay, so pa-open na po ng camera in 1, 2, 3. Smile po. Okay. Okay po, and see you next Wednesday. So, ganitong oras din po kasi ganitong oras yung klase nyo sa akin. Okay? So, baka 3 meetings na tayo, tapos na yung ating lesson. Kasi 3 hours talaga dapat ang ating klase. Kaya lang, hindi ko kayang i-consume yung 3 hours. Baka maubos na kayo, wala na matira. Okay, so see you next Wednesday po sa ganito ding oras for our lesson 2 ng HCI. So, pwede na po kayong mag-leave. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I hope to see you soon, class. Na face-to-face, sana magka-face-to-face.